Dead Rails is a pretty simple game on the surface. You spawn in, you hop into the train after the obligatory gold selling coal buying speedrun. However, this game can get a lot more in depth with a variety of classes and the pretty sizable amount of different weapons that we have to choose from. And today I'm going to be teaching you how to utilize all of these things and beat Dead Rails completely solo, with a lot of helpful tips, the best weapons to use, and how to beat the special locations all by yourself. I'll say this too, this is all assuming that you know the absolute basics of the game, but if you need to know the minimum bare bones basics for Dead Rails as a whole, I do have a full beginner's guide, which I will link at the top of the description below. Without any more needless stuff, let's get right into the video after I tell you that about 85% of recent viewers are not subscribed, and I'd love if we could get that number up. And of course, make sure to have notifications on, that way you don't miss any Dead Rails content or updates. Now, let's get into the video. So before you even load into the game, there are two classes that I'm going to recommend to you. First, Doctor. It was only, I think, about 15 bonds, but you get a lot of bang for your buck here. You spawn in with a solid amount of meds, and it saves you that little bit of extra money in the short term. However, my personal favorite class has to be the Alamo, costing 50 bonds, but you start out with some armor, and a good amount of armor for your train as well. And for the sake of the video, I will be using the Alamo class, as I think it's probably the best class for solo runs. Now, there's a few things that you could do after first loading into a solo match to help your chances of surviving. First, after selling the gold, what I like to do is buy 3 coal and a single bandage. After loading up my train with the fuel, what I like to do, since I play the Alamo class, is put a single piece of sheet metal in this spot right here where you see me placing mine, and then putting a single barbed wire in front of the entrance. Alternatively, you can use the newspapers by the edge of the spawn to get a similar effect, but if not, you could always just at least use them as fuel. Honestly though, the metal sheet is actually such a hack because the single piece can stop almost everything from getting into your train. So if you're running out of fuel at night or something, you aren't in as much danger as you otherwise would be. Looting, as an idea, is pretty simple. You just pick up stuff that you find lying around, and yes, that's true, but it can also be really dangerous since the zombies, especially the fast ones, are really unforgiving with their damage. And without meds or a gun, you can very quickly be overwhelmed. So what I recommend is kind of looping around the sides of a building initially before you go into it. That way you can actually attract the zombies to the edges, where you can hit them through the wall. Sometimes zombies will spawn outside of buildings though, and if you don't have a gun, the best thing that I would try to do is circle around the zombie while hitting them for the best chance to not take damage. Don't be afraid to take your time looting either, just keep a mental note of the time, and always check the clock on your train before jumping off. You've probably made it by this point or at some other point to at least one safe area, and these two are critical places for survival. So first, obviously they have the sentries that at night will shoot any enemies that come near you. If there's no coal, at the very least, over at least a night or two, you'll be able to get a ton of bodies to be able to use as fuel for your train. Alternatively, if you just have no money and there's coal to buy, you can sell the bodies, assuming that they're werewolves or vampires, and get money for fuel that way. I had a whole separate section about nighttime, but honestly, I'm just going to loop it all into the idea of risks. In general, don't take any unnecessary risks. If you see a town, but only have 30 bullets and a pistol or something, it's just not worth it. Just don't do it. If you're playing solo, it is so easy to even get into just a regular fight with bandits and end up dying because you didn't have enough armor. It's just really easy to know your limits, especially if you're a newer player. Just generally, don't test your luck. It's better to be safe than sorry if your main goal is to just beat the game. Part of not taking risks and being safe is going to be train armor. This is definitely one of the more important aspects to a solo run, and I'm sure that along your drive so far, you've probably found all kinds of chairs and wooden wheels and other random junk items, and while they can be used as fuel, it's a great idea to weld all of these things down to your train, just so you have some extra protection for the train cabin, and extra fuel whenever you do end up needing it. You can also use things like wooden wheels as an easy way to bulletproof your windows, while still allowing you easy access to be able to see what's going on around you. They can be found in literally any building. It is just flat out a great idea to armor your train. It's probably the most important thing to your survival whenever you're playing solo. One of the other most important aspects are going to be weapons. They're fairly easy to find, whether it's a sheriff building or a bandit camp, or you just buy one from the gunsmith. And for me, the rifle is going to be the best early game weapon to save for overall. It one-shots to the head for zombies and bandits, 2 shots for vampires, and generally works well for most smaller enemies in the game. Shotguns are also great for close-up tanking enemies. Just always make sure that no matter what you're using, you're always aiming for the head as much as possible to maximize your damage and minimize your bullets used, which will also save you money in the long run. Towns are not super rare. You'll come across multiple of them through an entire playthrough, and if you've played this game before at all, I'm sure that you've stepped into one and been overwhelmed by zombies a time or two. They're great to loot, but you'll want to take it slow. I'd recommend pulling your train a bit further past the town to attract as many initial zombies as you can, and giving you plenty of time to single them all out with a rifle or something similar. And buildings also can have zombies inside as well, so just be ready for them. Also, definitely keep an eye out for the churches, as they can have crucifixes and holy water in them, both of which are fantastic weapons, and both of which are worth a lot if you choose to sell them. Now, the first special place that you'll come across is going to be the military base, or Fort Constitution as it's very Americanly called. And this is going to be probably the easiest of the 3 current major special areas. And while it's not necessary for progression, it can let you get some really good gear, including a cannon and a ton of money. The number one thing to note about the military base is that you get an almost endless funnel of money, because for each of the undead soldiers that you kill, you can take them to the sheriff's buildings and sell them each for 35, including the captain, who sells for 150. So if you spend a little while going back and forth to the nearest safe area, you can get like $1,000 just from this location alone, which will set you for the rest of the game. The next special area that you're going to come across is, to me, the most difficult because the insane amount of tough enemies that'll spawn here. But if you're patient, it can be an absolute breeze. Now, for me, what I like to do is use a horse to block off the entrance and kill the werewolves that come near me. Or you could just straight up bait out all of the enemies while on a horse and just shoot at them from behind you while you're running. Either way, it'll take a bit of time to be able to finally kill all of them. Also, of course, the enemies that spawn here are going to sell for quite a bit themselves. The current last special area is going to be the Tesla Lab. And this is one place that is literally the definition of optional. It doesn't have a ton of stuff going on inside. There's a little bit of gold here and there, some other items I could sell for a decent amount. So on the surface, it really doesn't seem like it has all too much going on. And honestly, that's where your adventure for this building can just kind of end. However, you can put together this werewolf hybrid boss thing. And what that essentially does is whenever you pull this lever in one of the rooms, it summons a big wave of zombies for a couple of minutes that you have to fight off. However, whenever I played during the day, I got hit by lightning, so you might just want to stay inside of the building. After beating the wave of zombies, you will get the electrocutioner, which will be a weapon that spawns. It's an insanely useful pistol that fires lightning down from the sky, and it's kind of a fun extra challenge to be able to get it. Though it does summon a boss battle at the end of the game, so just be aware if you do this, you're going to be fighting a big scary man, but we'll get into that later. Basically, all that you're going to be doing is making sure you're geared up, armored up, your train is armored up, and you got plenty of meds on you, because once you hit 70,000 meters, that's when it starts to get real. Because at 70,000 meters, you're going to come across the last safe place that is in the current version of the game. You'll know that you're almost there whenever you start hearing gunshots towards your train. The first thing you're going to want to do is take out the 2 sentry nests. There's one on each side of the wall. Now, after this, there's going to be some other bandits that you'll see out in the open. You could just shoot at them, since you'll hopefully be far enough away that you have not aggroed them yet. And once they're dead, you can slowly start inching into the town, where there will be some more bandits that spawn inside of the surrounding buildings. There's also going to be 2 other sentries on the back sides of the walls. Now, after you defeat all of them, you're going to want to go from building to building. You can find all kinds of ammo and guns and bonds especially, and then you can turn this giant wheel of despair, which starts to lower the bridge in front of you where the game actually is completed. Now, after you do this, in a couple of seconds, you're going to start getting a huge wave of bandits, some zombies, and if you did the challenge bit from earlier, you're going to get the final boss. Now, regardless of whether you're dealing with him or not, this is the point where you can start actually using the electrocutioner, and if you just don't want to fight anything, you can sit inside of your train and wait, or you could climb the side of the bridge and just go wait in the back and nothing's really going to come bother you. If you are going to fight the boss, however, this is where things are going to get a little bit difficult. He's faster than you, he does a lot more damage than you, he's got a lot more health than you, and he throws giant boulders at you. This is where it is a fantastic idea to keep a bunch of snake oils in your hotbar, because you're going to want to try and outrun this guy as best as you can. Alternatively, just have a horse. You'll get a badge if you beat him, and boom, there you go, you win. If you are still struggling with any particular section though, feel free to absolutely leave a comment. I or somebody else should be able to help you. Right now, with recent videos, about 85% of you guys watching have yet to subscribe, and I would love if we could get that number up. And of course, so that way you don't miss any of the Amazing Dead Reels videos that are coming out. Otherwise, huge shout out to the channel members. Without you, it'd be a lot harder to make videos like this as often as I do. And of course, you can become one too with the join button on my channel, or with the link in the description below. But with all that said, have a great rest of your day. I hope this video helps you out as a solo player, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace, dudes.